You are listening to That's What I Call Marketing with your host, Connor Byrne.
Welcome to That's What I Call Marketing. Of course, this is the podcast where you will hear from the leading lights in the marketing world and listen to their unique insights. Don't forget, please do rate or review this episode wherever you are listening or watching. It is the single thing that gives us the opportunity to reach and build on this amazing community of engaged marketers just like you. So if you do that one thing for us today, we would really appreciate it. Of course, if you're interested in getting involved, That's What I Call Marketing, our sponsorship kit is available on our website. That's what I call marketing.com/sponsor. Well, as I mentioned last week, we're taking a short break from our Cannes sessions and we are dipping into an episode all about Marketing Team of the Year. And my guest today is Kevin Kent. Kevin heads up marketing and consumer sales at Laya Healthcare, which is one of Ireland's three current healthcare providers, commercial healthcare providers. And Kevin's team recently won the prestigious Marketing Team of the Year award. So in today's episode, Kevin provides a bit of a background to Laya Healthcare for those who don't know of it, from its beginning as Bupa, evolution to Quinn Healthcare, and the establishment of Laya in 2012. He shares his insights into the highly competitive Irish health insurance market, and we discuss the strong customer focus that is at the core of Laya's culture. We discuss the importance of internal education, creating an inclusive team culture where every member's contribution is valued, and how that has helped the marketing team achieve the Team of the Year accolade. Kevin outlines the milestone achievements and strategic shifts that have contributed to Laya's success, including a critical focus on long-term marketing strategies, building distinctive brand assets, and ensuring consistent brand messaging. He reflects on the importance of maintaining organisational and marketing discipline, even as they as a team need to stay open to innovations and also think about new market entrants. We also discuss where to next. When you win Marketing Team of the Year, well, how do you keep that a winning team engaged, motivate? Kevin's passion for marketing and commitment to fostering such a positive team environment really shine through in this episode. So if you're interested in hearing an episode about building a great culture, building a strong marketing team, and over time, like this, none of this happened overnight. This is a really fascinating episode from one of the great and honestly top thinkers of marketing in this country, Kevin Kent.
Are you facing the maze of global expansion? Diplomat introduces the diplomacy model, a cost-effective, innovative approach to navigating the complexities of your brand's presence in international markets. Visit diplomat.agency.
If you would like to reach an engaged community of marketing leaders, get in touch with That's What I Call Marketing to discuss sponsorship opportunities.
Kevin, thanks a million for joining me on That's What I Call Marketing.
Glad to be here, thank you.
Second time, of course. You were the very first end-of-year roundup.
Back when you were stuck for guests.
Yeah,
not anymore.
Not at all. No. That was great. That was. I needed people to take the leap of faith with me, so appreciate it. Listen, I wanted to catch up with you after winning Marketing Team of the Year, which is an amazing accolade. But before we get into that, I wanted to get maybe a bit of background for people who don't know about you, about Laya Healthcare, which is the Marketing Team of the Year, of course. So I'd love just maybe to give a bit of background. Laya, how long has Laya Healthcare been in the market, the Irish market?
Yeah, so Laya was set up in May 2012, but its origins actually go way back. So Laya was the original challenger to the incumbent in health insurance in Ireland. So it started off as Bupa. So Bupa came into the market, disrupted, took the incumbent on head on, and stayed there then for a number of years. Unfortunately decided to exit. Then Sean Quinn came in and purchased the business and became Quinn Healthcare. Then unfortunately he got into difficulty and thankfully then there was an MBO back in 2011, which then led to the launch of Laya Healthcare in May 2012. So since then, it's gone from strength to strength. Yeah. The business has grown, and we'll also talk about profitable growth, and it has to be profitable growth. So we've grown since then, we've gained share, we've won more members, and then we've expanded. So we moved into life insurance, moved into travel insurance, and at the moment, it's all going great.
Yeah. That evolution from like Bupa, because probably back then, I might be wrong, but probably back then, was there just one main competitor in the Irish market? There wasn't a competitor, actually. It was just one.
There was one, right? So they were on their own. So Bupa came in and it expanded, right? So when there was Bupa, then there was Quinn, and then we had other players in the market. So we were up to 4. So when Laya launched, there was 4 players in the market. So there was the VHI, there was Aviva Health, there was Laya, and there was Glow Health. So they were the 4 in the market. It then went down to 3, I think, in 2017. And then, look, there's another new entrant to come back into the market now later this year. Look, and that's good. Competition is good, right? And it's very much in terms of, a lot of times when I listen to your episodes, you listen to the brands who are talking about massive growth. Ours is a slow-moving market. So that's a challenge. There's an awful lot of people who hold health insurance who don't shop around. So our challenge is, how do we capture those who do come in, and how do we gain more of who are in the market? And that's a huge part of what we put on it in terms of how do you make Laya the preferred brand for people who have health insurance. And I think that's what a lot of the team and the business have worked very well on over the last number of years, is how do we retain the members we have and acquire new members? So far, so good.
Yeah, and it's interesting. The name Laya has a meaning, but there's a bit of an origin story to how that came about as well.
There is, and so I was fortunate back when Laya was Quinn. I was agency side and they were my client, and we were tasked with come up with the name for the new business, and it was an eye-opening experience because so to get a trademark, Laya operates in financial services, but because it's healthcare, it's also across the pharmaceutical side, and we needed European-wide. So we looked high and low at names. We had a long list of names, and I can still remember some of them. And but they kept failing the trademark applications because there was an existing one. And eventually then we were given a deadline saying, listen, lads, you need a name, and we need a name in 2 months. So it was one of those things where all into a room, it can't be a real word, but we wanted it to be true to what the business was. Yeah. And we looked at everything, and I can still remember everyone was writing names on the board, and one of the guys in the agency wrote up, looking after you always. That's the core of what this business is going to be about. As we go forward, it's the customer at the heart of it, looking after that. We went, looking after you always. And it was like, let's take the L, the A, the Y, and the A, and let's make Laya. So we went into research. We had 4 names. Some of the other names I won't go into it, but there was 3 other names. You're going, geez, imagine if we picked one of those. But yeah, we took Laya into research. It performed really well. Like all research, there was things we had to address. But yeah, that was it. We had to make up a word to get a trademark, and we decided to make up something that was true to what the business is about. Yeah. And yeah, that launched, like I said, back in 2012, and it's gone really well. Yeah,
I still remember that, like the Laya looking after you always, and the connection. I may have been working in an agency. I think I might have been in Brando at the time, and kind of that. Anyway, coming out, you're like, oh, like that was a new evolution and kind of fresh.
It was something new, and it had to be fresh.
Yeah, definitely. But so you were agency side. How then did you end up on the Laya side?
Yeah, so I was agency side, and actually shortly before Laya launched, I left the agency and went off into the world of software marketing for a couple of years. And I got a call from a lady called Lorraine Walsh. So Lorraine would have been one of my clients when I was agency side, and like Lorraine set up essentially the original marketing function. She was there through Bupa and through Quinn, and she launched Laya. And she said, look, are you interested in looking for someone to come in? I know you, you know me, you know the brand. I said, geez, okay. So we had a conversation back in the start of 2014. I joined. And one of the things that was great about it, so when you're agency side, the clients tell you, oh, we're this, we're that. These are our values. We live by this. You're like, look, you do. Of course you do. Yeah. But I got in there and I was like, Jesus, everything that Lorraine said is actually true. So on our wall behind us here, you can see our 4 values, right? And Laya lived by them. And so that was one of the eye-opening things for me when I went in. We live by the values. Our MD, Donal, who's been there since day one back in the Bupa days, he always has this saying, what's right for the member is right for our business. And Lorraine would have always talked about that. But that's really how decisions are made in Laya. And the amount of times you're inside in a meeting, you've got to make a decision, and someone will go, actually, guys, what's right for the member? And that's what guides us, and that's what I love, right? It's like at the heart of Laya is the customer, and it's how it's evolved. So, yeah, so look, Lorraine brought me in, and Lorraine's still there. She's probably appropriately now, she's our director of CX. Okay. So she's got responsibility for the CX culture across Laya, which is a huge portfolio, and then all of our contact centres team as well, and what goes with that. So yeah, that's how I ended up in here.
Wow, it's amazing. And it is interesting that, because like a lot of companies say we live by our values, and then there was the whole purpose thing where everyone had a purpose, but it wasn't lived true. And it is lovely to hear that. And I know from some of the team that I know at Laya that actually is true. I've talked to people in the company, and genuine and sincere and very authentic. And I think part of it probably comes from a bit of longevity, but then even new people come in, they're able to bring a fresh perspective and make sure that those values aren't stale, I guess.
Well, yeah, that's exactly right. So like, on the values, I'd pretty much bet that if you ask anyone, there's 600 odd people who work for Laya, if you said to them, what are our 4 values, they'd rattle them off. They're on the wall, but they are how we behave.
Yeah.
If you bring forward a business case for anything, you have to outline how they support the values, right? And I think that's really important. I think one of the challenges too is always, you know, about new people coming in, that's great. But we try and stay true to looking after you always. And it's one of the things that we've definitely grappled with and matured with as a team over the years is, you know, as new people come in or you work with new partners, everyone wants to do something new. But how do you stay true to your core, which is looking after you always? And over the years, we've had different lines and campaigns. We're always saying, guys, it's still about looking after you always. That's who we are. That's what's really important. And it's heartwarming in some respects, and probably only marketers can say is when you're sitting in a focus group and someone says, oh, that's the brand that looks after you always. You're kind of go, okay. And if you're doing blind testing of scripts, and if you put in looking after you always, they know it's Laya, okay, it's there.
Yeah.
But that's then you have to keep at it. So that's a little bit of trying to work with new people coming in, making them understand, but not staying stuck in the past. How do you evolve it? So that's part of the
whole fresh consistency
That's exactly
piece.
it. And getting that balance.
So in the nearly 10 years now, is it 10 years now?
Yeah, 10 years, just past it.
How have you seen the business evolve? Like obviously it's grown, but as you said, it's a steady growth. Or were there kind of peaks where you broke through, or how did that kind of evolve?
Yeah, so it has been steady, right? And it has to be consistent, not just in the brand, right? From the business point of view, how do you build and how do you grow? And maybe a little bit because of our history as a business, we'd always say, we've seen it all, right? So we always very much try and remain calm. What's your plan? What's your strategy? Okay, the facts have changed. You have to change your plan. So the growth has always been there, and look, and we've had hiccups. So there's been a couple of things where you go, okay, wish that didn't happen, but you deal with it, right? And you work through it. Like I remember back in 2015, and this is going back a good bit now. There was this thing, lifetime community rating. So the government introduced,
that's right,
if you didn't have health insurance by the time you turned 35, there was a loading, and that was a phenomenal time in Laya where there was an opportunity to win significant growth, and Laya thankfully performed really well. But the whole company was focused on that April 30th date and what to do. And I can still remember, a lot of us are still in the contact centre because the deadline was midnight. The phones were still ringing. Right. We were keeping them open. Everybody was answering the phones, taking messages for the guys to call them back. And that really brought the business together. And we performed exceptionally well through that period. And I think that gave us the momentum and the belief to keep going. It is always about how do you do it. And it's like even today, I was one of the guys in the team, we're talking about next year. Right, you know what? The business is going to ask us for more growth. Yeah, and we can say, look, the growth this year is hard. Where's it going to come from? But the expectation will be we need more next year. But how do you retain what you have first of all, and then how do you gain more share? But do it in the basis that you have to be profitable. Don't just take short-term decisions that are going to have a negative impact beyond that.
And from the outside looking into Laya, to me, it seems like it is two things. One, marketing-led, but long-term marketing-led. Like you've set about creating distinctive brand assets. We've talked about like fresh consistency. How has that come about in the organisation? It's a customer-led organisation, but is marketing at the core of all of that?
It is, right. And I do think we're probably doing things now that we think are right, but I think we've probably done things over the last couple of years which show are right too and weren't, right? So you have to learn. And we always say in the marketing team, like, we're really fortunate to work on the marketing team for Laya. And what I mean by that is, you say, is a customer-led? 100%, right? Like that phrase, what's right for members, right for business, that runs it, and that's from our MD down. Are you going to do something? Is it for the best interest of the customer? Is it going to help the customer? Is it? Great, do it. If it's not, don't do it. So that consistency comes through. I also do think from the marketing point of view, we're really lucky to work in an organisation that understands and appreciates marketing.
Right.
So marketing isn't just a cost, right? It's understood, it's appreciated. And that doesn't mean that the marketing can do whatever we want. It means that we will get an audience and be heard and be listened to, right? So actually only this morning, we have a new piece of work now break in the next 2 or 3 weeks. And we sent it around today for internal review. And the positivity comes back on it. But we're able to maybe understand why we're doing it. Why we haven't maybe done as much new work in the previous 6, 9, 12 months as the past, because it's about consistency, it's about building on it. What's in market is working. This is the next wave that's coming through. So we're really fortunate that the executive understand and get it. Now, Lorraine, who I mentioned, she sits in the executive, so she's got a huge track record in marketing, but the rest of the exec appreciate it. Like when you're sitting down with finance and finance are giving it back to you the importance of share of voice, you're going, okay, this is really important. And, or even if you're sitting down and talking to our pricing team, which we do, and they're telling you about brand consideration and brand preference scores and where is it at. Like I remember sitting in a meeting not so long ago and there was a question thrown out the brand and the head of pricing jumped in and answered it.
Okay.
So you're kind of going, we're really lucky to work here.
Yeah.
So now that is because of people like Lorraine and everyone over the years who have gone back and educated and talked about it, but demonstrated this is the value that you're getting from the brand. And we are very fortunate that people like Donal, MD, get it and appreciate it and will support. Now he'll challenge us.
Yeah.
Right? So as they say in Laya, pack in the back, 6 inches from kicking the ass. You'll get both in Laya. But like, you get that support. And that's valuable.
And how is that education happening? You mentioned Lorraine, obviously, but I guess in your role as well, you've helped. It sounds patronising when you say helped educate the C-suite, but so I don't mean it in that way. But part of the role is bringing in some of the latest thinking. You've had to do that,
and so it's not just me, right?
Yeah.
So the entire team work at this. So and it is like we always say, like you should never be afraid of the question or the answer, right? Ask the question, listen to the answer, and understand is the right thing to do. So when we put a lot of time on that, you say bring in people. We bring in people, and sometimes you're bringing them in, and you might learn anything from this guest speaker. But actually it validates what you're doing is the right thing to do.
Right.
Or sometimes look, I'll be out. So we sponsor Munster, Leinster and Connacht, or we're one of the sponsors. And look, you'd meet other marketing people on those trips and you'd be picking their brains. And sometimes I'd bring that back to the team or some of the others, so Michal and Rebecca and Selda do the sponsorship with me as well. And they'd be out there and they'd be going, I was talking to this person, this brand, and they do this and so do we and we're doing the right thing, or they do that, why don't we do that? And you'd work through it. And so we spend a lot of time asking questions, and we ask questions of each other, we ask questions of the business, and a lot of times it's just about understand the why, right? So one of the things we say in Laya is you don't have to like the answer, but you got to understand it.
Yeah.
And if you understand the answer, it makes it easier. And like with our partners, we've got some great partners. We ask so many questions now, and it frustrates them, right? And we understand it's frustrating, but it's really important for us. And it's not that we don't agree with what they're saying. We just want that understanding.
Yeah.
So for me, by creating that culture of understanding and being able to ask questions, everyone gets it. And again, all the marketing team have the opportunity to talk to the executive, to present their work. So this isn't about just one person being the head of marketing and he presents the work. If you do the work, you present it. And that then means that everyone in the team gets exposed to the C-suite. And there isn't then this fear of, I'm going into the exec today.
I was going to say that can be a huge thing. People literally losing sleep in the build up to something like that, where it doesn't mean you're not prepared, but the fear is taken out of it.
But it's very easy to forget that, right? It's easy to forget that you had that fear too, right? Absolutely. If I need to ring the executive, any of them say, no problem, I'll pick up the phone. You said somebody on the team who's new. We had another person join the team yesterday. So if I said to her tomorrow, listen, Susan, you wouldn't ring
the TMD.
You know the fear, right? So you do that slowly. You introduce them. And again, if you bring it back to that question set, so if you bring in something for approval or discussion to the executive or one of the senior managers, there is that way you'll be asked lots of questions. And it's making somebody understand that they're not questioning you, they're questioning the work. Is it the right thing to do? They will 100% support you and they'll 100% back you. And absolutely, and there's been times we've done things and you are back. So if I look at the work that we've out now, we launched it back in 21. And at the start, it was taking time. And we had to say, trust us. Now, you bring back the research and you bring back the brand scores and say, look, it's getting there. It'll come through in terms of membership. And it has, thankfully. But you earn that trust. But by putting the team in front of the executive, they get used to it. And it doesn't become fear. It's understanding it's part of the process. And there's days you go in and you go, geez, I went in for a yes and I've left with 10 things to do. When you get to the end of the process, you go, actually, it was great.
Yeah.
But it's a process and a journey and it takes time. But I do think by doing it, everyone and the work is better for it.
Yeah, and that's like creating the culture around that then is really important.
Yeah.
Probably, it sounds like it's in the business. Anyway, but in the marketing team then, that's a huge piece of the role. How do you set that culture? Were the things you intentionally did or over time built in that you evolved?
There's a couple of things, right? So we reviewed and updated our marketing strategy back in 2019, right? And we set five goals. 4 of them were aligned directly back to business objectives. And the 5th was aligned to the team. And So we said, how do we create a team that has aspirations of being world class, right? That doesn't mean that you're starting to point and you're thinking we are. It's like that's what we want to get to, and that's where we want to go. And so we had a goal, same way we'd have a goal for growth and the other ones, a goal for the team. And one of the things I've learned is you have to work at that goal as much as you work at the other goals.
Right.
And we've learned over the years, said, look, this works, that doesn't work. And you always try new things. And we've done things like we introduced competencies for the team. And even that, in typical Laya style, we questioned it and we challenged it. And we based our competency framework on the Marketing Institute of Ireland have a competency framework.
Okay.
So we looked at theirs. We took 10 of their competencies. And even at the start, we're saying, okay, so like we have different roles and skills on the team, as is everyone. And we were like, okay, should everyone have different competencies? And we're saying, no, we're one team, same 10 competencies. So we defined the 10 competencies, and whether you're a marketing executive or the head of marketing or a marketing manager, brand manager, we all have the same 10 competencies. Your expectations are different across them.
Yeah.
And then, so everyone knows them. And you work through 2 or 3 a year. But you know, if you're at the brand manager's level, this is what's expected of you and a marketing manager. I think that was one of the things we did. But the other piece that was really interesting for me was, so we're all Cork based. That was in some senses a challenge, because a lot of times where you want to be meeting people like you and people that you have on your podcast, they're up here, so it was hard. But it was also an opportunity too in terms of be attracting great talent in terms of the opportunities that were in Cork. And I remember a couple of years ago we hired one of the team, Maeve, a brand manager, and she was based in Galway. And I was like, geez, this is great. Yeah. We now can have marketing people working across Ireland and we can bring them together. And I remember thinking about that, and I was like, but this also means that members of the marketing team can now get opportunities anywhere in Ireland.
And they're good.
And they're good. Yeah. So I now need to work harder to keep those people.
Them,
rather than thinking I can attract people, how am I going to keep what we have? And that was there where we said, we've got to double down the team. And so it's bringing in more speakers. It's making more time for them to do training development. It's making more available to them. And really spending more time with them. You want them to say, yeah, I could go and work here, but I really want to stay in Laya. And that's part of what I think is my job, is they can grow the business, but I really have to focus on minding them, developing them and training them so that they stay. And they might not always stay in the marketing team, but I hope they stay in Laya.
Right.
Or if they leave Laya, I hope someone sees their CV and goes, they've come from Laya, we definitely have to meet them.
It was interesting. I was listening to the On Strategy Showcase podcast from Dublin that Fergus Carroll did, and Rory Hamilton from Boys and Girls was talking about client agency stuff. But he said, we always look at when somebody goes or somebody arrives in a new brand and they say, look at the work. What have they done? Look at the work. Because you know
that's exactly
if the work's going to be good. And if, hopefully not, but if people were to go, they look at the work and go, it's good work. And now marketing team of the year work as well. And
it's the same, like when I see a CV, you do look for certain brands, right? And again, the aspiration is that in time, if someone sees a CV and it's got Laya on it, they'll go, okay, look, it's worth a conversation. Yeah. Because definitely CVs will come in and land on my desk and you'll say, okay, they've worked here or they worked there. Look, it's worth a conversation. Look, they've got a good pedigree, they'll have been developed, they'll have a good way of working it. And again, that's where we try and pitch ourselves. I'm not saying we're there, right? Yeah. Not at all. But that's the aspiration. Yeah. That's where you want to push yourself to be.
If you would like to reach an engaged community of marketing leaders, get in touch with That's What I Call Marketing to discuss sponsorship opportunities.
And that aspiration or that kind of ambition for the team, was that kind of part of, because being marketing team of the year isn't just something that you decide on a Tuesday, sure lads, we'll just enter this one and see what happens. Was that quite an intentional thing for you to set about?
Not for me, but the
team.
Absolutely, right? So we don't enter an awful lot of awards. And again, so it wasn't always that way. There was a time that we were entering awards left, right and centre. And I remember having to go to an award, I won't say which one it was, I think it was back maybe 16, 17, and being really annoyed at the team, going, why do we enter this if no one's going to go, right? And that's the moment where we stopped and said, what are we entering, right? And we said, you know what, we're going to enter fewer, and the aims is one that we always said, look, we hold it in such esteem, we'll always aspire to do it. And we've been fortunate over the year to pick up nominations and a couple of wins. So when we were looking at the strategy back in 1920, we said, wouldn't it be good if we got shortlisted? And we always felt it was something that we had to work towards, right? And you'd go every year and you'd hear the likes of Sky and AIB win, and you'd hear the presentations, you think, Jesus, wow.
Yeah.
Unbelievable work. And not just the work and the results, but the team. So we kept challenging ourselves, how could we do it? And how could we get there? So you're dead right. We didn't just decide to do it. And even So I think the submission this year was due the end of January. We started working on the submission in October, November. And what I mean by working submission, pulling together the stats. What do we want to say? How is it going to... And the submission is hard, right? So it's you're limited on words, and like you will sweat over words just to make sure we got it right. But it was something that we wanted for a while. And now it's going to go, and we got it great. But you can't sit back now. So again, if we want to retain this team and we want to give them opportunities, what's next? And what do we keep working on?
Going about, and I want to ask you about the next, what's next. But when you think about that, okay, we want that ambition for the team. We want to go about, and we're all collectively in on that ambition. As you say, it's not you saying, I want to do this, and therefore we have it. The whole team had to be bought into it. Did you set out, was there a roadmap? Because I just think it's interesting for people to go and think about, if someone's listening to this or watching this and go, 3 years' time, I want us to be marketing team of the year. And it's not a blueprint for anybody, I don't think. But were there milestones you set? So in year 1, we were going to have to do this thing, or there are certain skills that you wanted to bring in?
So yeah, there were certain skills we want to bring in, and there were certain skills that we brought in over the years that really helped everyone. Was there milestones? I don't know if there were milestones, right? Because a lot of things have to fall perfectly for you.
Yeah.
You could do amazing things in terms of the personal development, but not have the business results. And you can do amazing things and get business results, but not necessarily have the personal development, right? So you do need everything to fall for you, right? And we've been really fortunate that in the last 12 months, a lot of that come together, but it's equally been based on the decisions we made.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's a series of all those decisions that you've made lead up to actually being in the right place. So it is hard. I wouldn't say we had a necessary step. And there were years before we said we do it. We're like, oh, that's not there. And we did enter before, we didn't get shortlisted.
Right.
But that's the learning. So you go, why didn't we get shortlisted? And you go, actually, it was a poor entry when you go back and look at it. When you got to balance that emotion. And a lot of the people who work for Laya, we love working for Laya, right?
Yeah.
And we're really fortunate to work for Laya. But you got to be able to step out of that too and go, well, actually, is the work that good?
Yeah.
But it's only by going through it and again by listening to other people who've won and other people who've been shortlisted. And those conversations with other people. So I know you've had Paul Dervin on before, and he did submissions, and we've had him in talking to the team, and you learn from those.
Yeah.
And that's just all that continuous education and learning and understanding what they did. Then it's go, right, what should we do?
Yeah, I know Paul's talked about almost like behaviours or kind of charter. Again, did you have a kind of a sit down and go, what are the behaviours we have as a team? Or they're ingrained in Laya anyway, are they?
Yeah, we tried. And we've tried loads of stuff. And you come in and go, we should do this. And we tried to write a charter, I'm trying to think now, maybe 6-7 months ago. And it didn't work. We couldn't get it. Going, but is it just about the values? Do you know what I mean? Bring it back, right? So this is about the values that are important to us. This is about putting the customer at the heart of what we're going to try and do. And is it then going back to making sure you understand the recommendation and that you're happy to do what's recommended. And again, if I bring it back to the culture in Laya, we're very fortunate that they allow us to do what to do. But we'll say we will govern ourselves. So the marketing will govern ourselves and our outputs and our work harder than anybody else will. And we'll ask more questions about ourselves and we'll spend more time trying to get into the numbers. But we think then that makes sure that whatever we do, we fully believe in. And absolutely, we've done things over the years that we believed in and weren't right. But that's okay.
Yeah.
We did it with the right intention and we learned from it and we changed it and we did it. But so we haven't done anything else, but sometimes it's actually, and no different to marketing, right? It's going back to the simplicity and the easy things, right? We work really closely with our communications team, and one of them, Emma, has a great saying. It's about throwing tennis balls, right? And the more tennis balls you throw, the less can be caught. And again, on the marketing team, and sometimes that same sort of sentiment's important. Just do fewer things well.
Yeah.
And that makes a difference. It's the same with your communications and your marketing. Just do fewer things and do them well, and they'll be remembered.
That is hard because it sounds really easy, doesn't it? I talked to Margaret Malloy about simplicity and simplicity index, and you're like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But then when you're in it, you're like, but we could do this and we could do that. And how do you keep the focus?
We didn't always, right? I can remember 15, 16, every 8 weeks we had a new campaign. And the day the campaign went live, you're like, what's the brief for the next one, right? And you look back in that now and go, okay, so that's why we were seeing the brand results we were seeing, right? So it's hard to force yourself to do less. I do think something else that we've focused on is, so what's really important to us is growth. And we did some work back in 21 and 22 to understand if Laya is to keep growing, where does that growth come from, right? And we got into it, we understood where we were growing, we understood where we weren't growing and why. And that's become our single-minded focus for health, right? And then to answer your question, that's what brings it back. So by having that single focus going, is this going to help us deliver on what we're trying to achieve here, which will help us grow the business? It is, we should do it. It's not, okay, is it the right thing to do? And some of the times it's hard to have the conversations to say, actually, we shouldn't do it. And you have people saying, I want to do it. I know you want to do it, but you can't. And again, in the past, we would have had 3 different campaigns going live in the same day. And you're going, how did we end up here? So again, we say on the team, everyone has to have an opinion about what goes on. But if you're going to have an opinion, you have to know what's going to go on. So we do try and share across the team what everyone's working on. And it's a quick Monday morning, this is what I've got on this week, here's my top priorities. And by making sure everyone's aware, you then try and prevent people on the team's campaigns competing with each other, because we're not competing with each other, we're competing with the competitors.
Exactly. Yeah. And the worst thing is when you start competing with yourself, when there's enough competition out there to deal with.
And we've got, I don't know, are we fortunate? We've got 2 great brands that we do compete with who are household Irish names. So that's the competition. We just need to work together internally to go up against them.
And it's a tough category as well, because like insurance, health insurance is I think it's a fascinating category, because it's something that most people want to have, but most people don't want to think about either, right? See, it's like almost I don't know how to describe it, but it's a problematic one, right? Because people don't ever want to think, I might need some sort of insurance, any insurance, I think, really. And they only need it, they're only glad they have it when they do need it. So it's very much, how do you connect with people and get them to think about it? Because they're not in market, they're probably only in market once a year maybe, but it can just renew, so it can auto-renew. So it's a tough category.
It is a very tough category, right? And it's a tough category for all the reasons you said. It's a tough category because it is slow moving, right? So if you look at the retention rates that are out there and the amount of people who will auto-renew, the addressable market that you're going after isn't the total market. So you're saying what you do, and we'll have loads of debates internally about excessive share of voice and, is this going to deliver growth? And you got to bring back to all those who hold health insurance are not in the market every month or every year. So that's what you're going up against. So from our point of view, if you bring it back to the customer, is this right for the customer? Do we understand the customer? Is this going to help us attract the customers that we want to do it? It does help. And like emotion's hard, right? So a lot of the work we've done over the last couple of months now with publicists is trying to say, how do we bring more emotion in? And in fairness, they've challenged us about being less brand out and more consumer out. And that's the work that's going to live next couple of weeks now, hopefully starts that process. But again, if for me, it's got to go back to the customer, right? You've got to start with the customer. You've got to understand them, what you're trying to do. And that does make a difference, I think.
And with the work as well, one of the things that and we've touched on as well, is the consistency. Like, you have been incredibly consistent over, particularly the last couple of years, I think, and really built distinctive assets. There's the bump, there's the colours, which are hard to own. Again, it seemed quite intentional. And then how are you going to, without giving it away, we'll see it soon, but how's that going to evolve then into kind of the next iteration of the work?
And I do think consistency is hard and DPAs are hard. And they're hard because I think marketers by their nature want to do new work. And how do you do new work but stay consistency? And, over the years you read different things, and sometimes you read actually the best brief is the one with the strongest guidelines or parameters to stay within, right? And that's the piece. So internally, and it's not just the marketing team, right? So there's a huge amount of teams in Laya who are producing work, who will talk to our customers, and you got to go, guys, this is why it's important. They're like, I don't want to use the boom. I don't want to use the music. You're not doing it to appease marketing. You're actually doing it because it'll make what you do more effective. And that's really hard, because you're in some respects you're working against, as I said, the marketer's sort of internal desire to do something. So it is an awful lot of work to stick with it. I think evolution is a really good word, but evolution is hard, because one person's evolution is another person's revolution. And you're saying, okay, bring it back to what's important. And if you bring it back to what we talked about earlier about looking after you always, like, we try and keep bringing it back to that. And it is hard when you're working with new partners and everyone wants to do something new, and you say, absolutely, we're going to do something new, but it's starting from here. And the reason it's starting from here is it's served us well, and we do have to keep going. And it is a seesaw that you have to try and balance. But it's a difficult one, because you don't want to crush somebody's enthusiasm and ambition, but you want to make sure that they're delivering effective work. And it's trying to get that right. Not throwing the baby out with the bathwater, right? But it takes time and investment. And look, you've seen it, not like in any market you look, or any brand, new CMO head of comes in and I want it all new, fresh, my stamp on it, and they just throw in. Even
I got to speak to Mauro Porcini of Pepsi, and they've gone back to a very kind of 80s, 90s design of the Pepsi logo intentionally. Like a very intentional thing that they've done because they know that it was working for them. But that's coming soon.
It's just a plug.
Yeah. But going for the marketing award, obviously a team effort, probably something then you would have discussed with the executive or the CEO. Were they going, what? Why? What are you doing?
Did I discuss with the executive? We probably didn't.
Right, okay.
Straight up, right? Because I think it was important to me, it was important to the team. What's important to the executive is the team's happy and the business is growing, right? So I wasn't running up saying, we're going to enter this award, right? I didn't. And when we were there night and we won it was about us, right? So it wasn't going straight in the phone because we won. It wasn't that at all. And in fairness, over the following couple of days and weeks, there was a well done, congrats. But you move on. And so, like, from our point of view, it was great. We had a great night out with some good fun. And the aims are always great to catch up with people that you only meet once a year, right? And there's people you go, I haven't seen him, but I'll see him now Thursday night. And that's it. But you then go back to the work and what you have to do. And even then, you're just going to go, what's next for the team? And where do you go next? And it's then trying to say, okay, so we've got here, what's the next level up? And so we've someone who started the team yesterday, like I said, so you're trying to make sure that she's happy coming on board, and then you want to listen to her ideas. You want to go, no, listen.
We're marketing team of the year, you're grand.
Let us tell you. It's even when she was going through the interview process over the last couple of weeks, listen to her ideas and her suggestions. And that it's got to be that balance. So you've got the deep-rooted understanding of Laya, which is great, but then the new ideas coming in terms of saying, okay, maybe we should try that. Maybe that isn't working for us.
So how I remember one of the former sales guys I worked alongside, and he used to say, end of quarter, burn the awards, like move on. I don't get the impression it was necessarily that, but marketing team of the year, it's incredible credit to everybody in the team for all the work that gets put into it, but it's not going to be the thing that grows the business, right? Which is obviously very important. But do you think it's two things? One, does it give everyone more confidence in their abilities, capabilities and competencies, do you think, that going forward?
It's a good question. Can I be honest? I don't know.
Yeah.
And I do think that one of the things that's really important in development team is you have to stay humble. So I think we're really fortunate, like I said, to work in Laya. We're really fortunate the work we get to do. So you keep having to work at that, right? And I do think for me, it's made my role harder because I now need to work hard to keep these people. So all these 10 great people are working on the marketing team of the year. People will be looking at them. So how do I make sure that they all want to stay working in Laya? And how do I want to make sure that they have opportunities to grow and they can keep doing great work? So that's where my focus is. I don't think there was there was celebrations that night. Yeah. Next day we can move on. Yeah. And that's just part of it because there's more to do. Yeah. And that's what you got to look at.
And so then my second part to my question was, how are you thinking about what next? Are you resetting as a team a new ambition?
No, is the short answer, right? Now, there is a couple of things we're looking at. So, like, one of the things that we do is, like I said, we try and bring in externs to talk to us, right? And and you're just back from Cannes and we were over there with Colin, and it sounds like you were working very hard for the week, you poor fella. But, like, we've had Colin come in and do some sessions, right? And so we will try and find other people like that comes in. So we've now set a target that we want one person per quarter. And that's not one person, it could be one team. So we're doing a session now in 2 weeks' time with actually someone we know through our sponsorships to just do a lunch and learn, right? And the brief is very open. It's, listen, let's just ask each other anything over a sandwich and see what we can learn from each other. And they do great work on sponsorships and DM. And I found it surprising when I asked them, they're like, Jesus, absolutely, I'd love to.
Right.
And one of the things, I don't think we've ever asked somebody to come in and meet with us or share their experience who said no. So like that's something that we keep focusing on in terms of doing. And because for me, it's really important then that people know it's okay to be looking out. You got to stay curious, right? We don't have all the answers and there will be things we don't know, but by looking out, it'll help us. I think the other piece that we're doing is trying to keep that focus on learning and development. And it's hard, right? We always say in Laya, is the phone ringing, right? And that's going back to growth, that's important, but you have to find the time for learning. And it's difficult. How do you try and do it and how do you carve it out? So look, that's what we're looking at. And will it be enough? I don't know, but like if you stay curious and you stay working on it, it's important, but you do have to work really hard at it.
Yeah, and it is, I think the carving the time out thing is probably the hardest thing, because I remember again, being in a big organisation, and there was like a learning and development platform, and it was like, it's there, and you're like, okay, but like, I'm finding it hard to find the time.
And you got to remember, people have lives.
Yeah.
And it might be hard.
How dare they?
Yeah, but they might want to do things other than Laya and other than marketing in a week. And you absolutely got to respect that too. And you got to find the time for it. And you have to bring... You have to bring some fun into it. I think it was David Ogilvy had the saying, great fun makes great work, or great work makes... I can't remember which way it was. But it was all about... So when things are going well, everyone's in great form. So how do you maintain that culture so that it helps you keep producing great work? And sometimes the results might be, but it's okay. It's not you. We just need to figure it out. And if you understand it and you can go back and say, listen, this has happened, this is why it's happened, and this is what it means, this is what we're going to do to fix it. Generally in Laya, you're told, okay, do you need any help? Okay, away you go. It's just that accountability and the ownership piece and being able to understand it, you get the support you need.
And it is an enjoyable profession, this one. It should be, right?
Absolutely.
It should be. I think like people who enjoy it, and like curiosity, I talk about a lot, and I just think it's so important for people to be curious and interested and have exactly all the stuff you're talking about here. Like you've said it so many times, we don't know, we may not have the answers, and that's such a cultural thing to set, and for people then who work with you to know. Like even Kevin's saying that, so like I think that really helps.
And you know what? And that's really important. That I think you have to set it from the top down, and again, not just me. It's other senior managers. It's the executive. You have to tell people it's okay, right? And you have to show them I don't know, and this is what I'm going to try and do to figure it out, and this is how I'm going to do it. And the most important thing was me accepting that I need to find out how to do it. So you do, and that gives them permission. It is part of your role to keep working at that and to keep setting that culture so that people know, it's okay, I don't know, but I'm going to tell them I don't know, and I'm going to tell them the 5 things I'm going to do to find out, and when I'm going to come back, and what I'm going to do is an output of what I've learned. Yeah,
like it's just, it sounds simple, but these things take an awful lot of time, and
it's practice.
Yeah.
I do spend a lot of time reading different sports books, and from whether it's managers, players, and it's always fascinating the amount of time that sports people spend training versus playing. So if you take, look, we're involved in rugby, right? So you take any of those rugby players, they might play maybe 80 minutes a weekend, or some of them play 50 or 60. But they'll have trained hard for 4 days in advance, they'll have studied the opposition, they'll have gone through the analytics, they'll have eaten the right things, they'll have the right sleep, all to play for 50 or 60 minutes. So it's saying, foot in the world that we're in, we're playing a game every single day, 8, 9, 10 hours a day. When are we giving ourselves a chance to do the review, to do the analysis, to understand what's ahead? And it's trying to get that balance right, because you can't be going at 100 miles an hour all the time.
Yeah, and it's easy to get caught up in that.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it totally is.
How do you then keep up with everything? Because again, like things are changing at a rapid pace within marketing. You think about even the last 10 years you've been in LA, probably for a period... Marketing didn't change. I mean, social came on. That was a bit of a spike and a boost, but it kind of stabled out a bit. But I think the last year has just been insane with kind of the technology.
It is, right. But do you know, so everything has changed and nothing has changed, right? And I do think, even going back into Colin Lewis, right? So he would have talked to us an awful lot about the importance of diagnosis. And everyone talks about diagnosis, and you know, marketing land, you start your diagnosis, you start with the customer, you work through it, right? So like that's never changed. Right? And I do think a core what we do is it's bringing it back to that. I think marketers are always so keen to find the new thing and to find the new change. You have to ground it in what hasn't changed. Like part of me at times would love to take a marketer from the 1960s and to drop them into Laya and go, how'd you get on? And I think if they stuck to the core principles, they'd do all right.
Yeah.
So absolutely, they wouldn't know their TikTok and they wouldn't have all of that. But that's just a channel. It's just a tactic. You start with your strategy, you start with your customer. So for me, it's trying to understand all these things that are happening, going, well, what's a trend and what's a fad? And what's something that we should respond to and jump on, and what's something we should just take a cautious approach. And some of that now is because we're in insurance, we're risk averse, right? Yeah. So it's always cautious here. And it is looking and saying, okay, where should we do it? And sometimes it's then, do you want to go for it? But you do want to be agile and be fast. And again, but is it grounded in the strategy?
And then the insight as well. Like I think, like you're right, those things are not going away, right? Like good insight is good insight where the work shows up. And even that idea of needing to be entertaining in the 1960s in someone's living room, like I think Karen Nelson Field was saying it, like it's more personal now on your phone because you're like literally, you're closer.
You're in the palm of the hand.
Yeah, the palm of the hand, and you have to be, you know, a good guest.
Yeah.
And so I guess The landscape, you said, probably will change for insurance in this market a little bit in the next year, but I get the impression that you're just focused on the Laya, I guess the Laya track.
Yeah, we are, right? But you'll never be blinkered, right? And you can never be blind to it, right? And I do think that, going back to the curiosity looking at, you have to be aware of it. We have two really strong competitors that we spend enough time looking at it and trying to understand and what they do. But everything's grounded in our business and what we're going to do. So we absolutely will have a plan. We've a strategy out to 2028. We're focused on that. But that doesn't mean that we're so focused on that we're blind something that needs to be changed. Yeah. So if the facts change, you come back, you look at your plan and realise, do you need to change your plan? You do or you don't. And then you decide you're going to do it. So you always have to have that openness and that understanding that actually maybe something will need to change. And it's acceptance that change is okay if it's for the right reasons. And if you don't need to change, at least you've had the conversation, you've had the debate, and you decided, no, this is the right thing to do. We're going to keep doing it.
Yeah. So you don't flip flop. That's the
And I think that's what we've learned over the years, is not to flip flop, right? And I think it's also not just marketing, as a business in Laya, it's trying to have that confidence in terms of what we're doing, but without being so blind to the need to actually address something.
And you're clearly, you're very passionate about marketing, right? Like you've agency, but the client side as well. How do you keep that passion alive? Is it just something that's innate in you? I was fascinated by it.
So like, I am fascinated by it, right? And it's funny. So my wife's a GP. So like, my kids think she's got a real job, and I'm just having the crack. So it is hard because you go home and you're excited about it, and they go, "Dad, it's an ad." You know, what are you talking about? So it is hard when you're not getting that support at home. So like, if my wife's listening, she could do a bit more support. No, but you do love it. So you don't stick at this thing for 20 years without loving it. But I also think if I bring it back to my job, how am I going to help those guys that are coming up, right? So the people on our team who are only at this for a couple of years. So I need to keep trying to work to help them, to develop them further. And it's going, right, what would I have loved when I was at their stage of their career or at their age? It's going to go, okay, how can I get that for them?
Yeah.
How can I give them those opportunities? How can I open those doors or help them? And it's trying to put them in the position where that they have those opportunities. And sometimes you need to help them. And sometimes, you know what, you just need to get the hell out of their way.
Yeah.
And so it can't be about you, right? And it's about, how do I give them the opportunity to shine? And if I'm nowhere near it, it's great. And sometimes at the start for them, that's hard, that's nervous, but you go, you got it, you know better than I do, you understand, you've done the work, away you go. And you know what? You take all the credit and I'll take all the blame if it doesn't go right.
Yeah, but that, again, that's like, that culture is easier said. I've worked with somebody before who's the complete, I've worked for a few of them, complete opposite of that. Like literally, I will take all the credit. In fact, I will hear something that you say and I'll bring it to the CMO and I'll make it my idea. And then if it doesn't work, I'll be coming to you going, you messed up. And it's just toxic.
And can I be honest, I think that's because that's Laya.
Yeah.
Right? I said Laya's in terms of
the opposite, not the toxic one.
Exactly. So the way we are, right? And it's what's next, right? So who's next? How do we help them? How do we develop them? And I do think my job of all the people on the team is sometimes the simplest. What's our strategy? Great. Now, how do I make sure the team have the budget and resources to deliver it? And then how do I help them deliver on their plan? And that's the way I see it. But that's not unique in Laya. That's the way we have to work. And I do think, so if you look at our growth, it's consistent year in. Now, would you like it to grow faster? And sometimes you listen to some of your guests and they're talking about the word of FMCG and you're like, wow. Like our category grows by about 1.5%. If it grows 2%, we're practically sitting back going, Jesus, how do we keep up? And you listen to their categories. But thankfully, in the recent periods, Laya's been growing faster than that. The challenge being, how do you keep doing that? And you never ever want to get complacent. Absolutely, we had a great day yesterday. You mightn't have a great day tomorrow. You stay tuned in, you stay focused. And tomorrow isn't a good day. That's when you need to support the team, right?
Yeah.
And you got to go, okay, don't worry about it. We'll figure it out. We've got credit in the bank. Let's try and see what we do next. And again, that's where the executive role rules. And everything. So if you go in to your weekly operations meeting and you say, listen, this is what's happening, invariably the first question you'll get is, do you need any help?
Wow.
And that is your peer who could be sitting there going, if he doesn't hit his number, I'm under pressure.
Yeah.
And their first question is, what can I do?
Wow.
So again, that's just the culture in Laya.
That's amazing. What a great place, genuinely like a great place to work. It really is. Yeah. And that's, look, I guess that's probably part, like when you think about it, that culture allows great work to happen, people to feel safe and trusted. And that's how you become, along with great marketing, but become a marketing team of the year, because you have all that and all those things in place, and the learning, the education, the helping people. Like it's again, no blueprint for anybody, but that's your story of how you've gone about
That's it. And like you said, but the mindset, you do need all those things to be in place. And when you're very fortunate that they are. But that's down to an awful lot of people making good decisions and an awful lot of people working very hard.
Yeah, well, listen, congratulations. I was thrilled. I was at the awards and the table I sat at looked at me a bit oddly because they weren't even nominated for Marketing Team of the Year. And when you won, I jumped up and I was like, yes!
Thank you very much.
They're all looking at me going, are you all right? But no, I was thrilled for you. It is a wonderful team and deserves congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for taking the time out, Kevin.
Congratulations on the podcast and everything it's doing. It's brilliant.
Thanks a million. Cheers, Kevin.
Thanks, Connor.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that episode with Kevin. As I said at the start of the episode, Kevin is one of the top thinkers of marketing in our country. I truly believe it. He is deeply curious about marketing theory, practice. He really adores it. He really studies it, and he really applies what he learns and figures out what's right for Laya Healthcare and his team. And that's the other thing. As a leader, you could hear it come through in today's episode. Kevin's a phenomenal leader. He's thinking about the team. He's thinking about how he ensures he's helping his team grow and develop, continuously learn, become great marketers, and have really great ambition for the organization, because it's a tough competitive marketplace that they operate in. So real pleasure. And I said at the end of the episode there, I was so thrilled to see that team win. You know, I've had the opportunity of, engaging with some of the team members, and they really are excellent marketers. So it was a great win for that team. Listen, we are back next Tuesday with another episode from our Cannes sessions, and it is with the wonderful Mauro Porcini of Pepsi. So please do stay tuned next Tuesday for that episode. For me, your host, Connor Byrne, thanks so much for tuning in.
If you would like to reach an engaged community of marketing leaders, get in touch with That's What I Call Marketing to discuss sponsorship opportunities.
Are you facing the maze of global expansion? Diplomat introduces the diplomacy model, a cost-effective, innovative approach to navigating the complexities of your brand's presence in international markets. Visit diplomat.agency